the difference of being sober, which is a start, versus being free. Because I've done a lot of dirt. I've hurt a lot of people, including myself, and I'm my own worst enemy, as you hear me say, often of reminding my own self of all the mistakes I've made. And you cannot move forward when you're looking in the rearview mirror. You cannot let your past dictate your future. And there's nothing more troubling to me, because I used to live this way, when more or less, I'm now supposed to be sober, and I am so weighed down with regret and failure and mistakes and lost opportunities and people telling me I had potential, as you hear me reference often. You know, it's okay to tell me I got potential when I'm 12, 15, 18, but it got a little old when I was 30 and 35. People saying, you know, watching me self-destruct for the umpteenth time. And truly, the level of teaching that's been happening, especially over the last couple of weeks, is really critical. It's critical. I mean, we're not just talking about putting the plug in the jug. We're talking about you getting freed up in order to free other people up. Now, you can't give what you don't have. I mean, all you're more or less doing is trying to transmit something that is not within you. Now, we know that God doesn't play favorites. You have to come to that realization that what He did for whoever you admire, He can do for you. He is no respecter of persons. He did what He did for the worst of the worst, like me. And tonight I really want you to, tonight's message is truly, it took me many, many years to live a life like I've been living over the last 5 years, where I really had to man up. I had to grow up. I had to man up. I had to put my childhood behind me. I had to learn how to cope and really look at things differently. Because if I don't deal with the root issues that steps 4 and 5 challenge us to look in, the same thing will continue to manifest itself. And you know, one thing that I'm tired of hearing with people in recovery, and it came out of my mouth for many, many years, when somebody's in trouble, they're not working the program, you know, they're focused on other things other than their recovery or God. They say to me, and I said to them, well, it's not like I want to go get drunk. Let me be very clear, it's always about that. Because that's where we always end up. In the casino, in the bar, in the dope house, in the emergency room, in the urgent care. I mean, they knew me in every urgent care in this city. I'll never forget, there was a time that my kids were real little, and I was over in St. Paul, and it was like I won the Olympics. I found a new urgent care. you could have really, literally, I was the happiest man on the planet. And I'll never forget, I pulled up in front of that. I don't know why God made me remember this. I haven't thought of this for many, many years. But I think it's to show you the degree of how sick I really was when I was addicted to opiates. That I went in that, and I had it all planned out, and I pulled into that line. I didn't even pull them apart, just left the kids in the car. And I'll take it a step further. I used to take my babies into the urgent care to get more sympathy from the doctors. Now, I'm not proud of that. I've sold crack cocaine with them in the child seat. I'm not proud of that, but I tell you that to tell you that it don't matter what you've done. What matters is you can get freed from that guilt and shame. But I sat in that urgent care, and I'm trying to hustle my bustle and do my thing, and, you know, worried about the kids in the car. I was supposed to have the kids to the wife at the time's house, and here I'm making up stories why I'm late. Why I'm late is because I'm at urgent care, not because traffic's bad or whatever. We're creative people. People get tired of hearing our lies. And that doctor came into the room, and he already run my name. I don't know why God's bringing this to my memory tonight, on how serious this is. He says, I'm going to call the DEA because you are shocking I'm the type of dope fiend that got cut off by the crack dealer. That didn't make no sense to me. I'm your source of income, dealer. See, it don't matter how far you've gone. It don't matter how ugly your stories are. They're not unique to me. And I'm not a teacher or a testimony guy that's going to get into the drunken log or how much dope I smoke. I don't go there. We all did it. That serves no purpose. I don't need to know how many DWIs you got. You might have me beat, but I probably should have more than you. Who cares? What cares is there's one way to make this happen, and it ain't your way. It ain't your way. It's like that video we played on Sunday. So, Lord, I thank you for another day above ground and out of prison. Lord, I thank you for breath in my lungs because I remember what it was like on an overdose, thinking I was going to take my last breath. Lord, I remember sitting in tubs full of ice cubes trying to get my pulse going again. Lord, you are doing a miraculous thing in our midst with the most unlikely people, one being me. Lord, I pray tonight's message may be all of you and none of me, that it will change somebody's perspective, which will in turn change their life and how they view their life, their past, their present, and their future. Lord, I pray to you that you do what you've done through in me, in other people tonight, and I do not take for granted this life that you have given me to live. Touch hearts so people most definitely will leave differently than they came. I thank you for the friends that I have in this room, because I remember the day, wherever I turned, every bridge was burned. Thank you for this family. Thank you for the love that I feel here. Thank you for the thousands of chances that you've given me. Lord, if I ever forget where I came from, put a check on me real quick. Because I don't want to ever forget how bad it was and what you saved me from. Have your way here tonight. In your name we pray, amen. Amen. So, I was talking to my wife about Sunday's message, and you never quite know how people are going to take something that truthful, something that real, something that evident, and it's evident to different people. I talked to enough people afterwards. And one thing my wife said is, because we had so many new people, we continuously have new people on Sunday, and truly we're about ready to do some pretty miraculous things. We already are doing that. But, sometimes, Jeff and Jeff's fear shows up. I mean, when you just be you and speak the truth, if you're not secure and confident in what you've been called to do, you'll be constantly questioning. And I'm a human being too. Well, what my wife said made a lot of sense. Whoever's supposed to be here is going to be here. See, I used to run this program. I was so afraid of offending you because you might leave. What would we do if you left? I don't live like that anymore. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. And like I said last week in our Tuesday night meeting, this is not sober housing. This isn't just learning how to put the plug in the cup. This is a training camp for world changers. Because you didn't go through everything you went through just to be miserable. God carried that. So we've been talking about the word command. And for a lot of us who hate authority, hate being told what to do. See, I was the type of guy that in my mind, even words out of my mouth, my mother's here tonight, and she'd say, don't do that, don't do this, and she was right. But in my mind, I was going to prove her wrong. I either told her, I'll prove you wrong. It was like a vendetta I had to prove people wrong that were right. But 100% of the time, I proved them right. And I had to come to the conclusion that my very best thinking got me here. And I'm creative. I'm creative, so are you. We know what to say, we're going to say it. But who are we lying to? That's why How It Works says, rarely have we seen a person fail that has thoroughly followed our path. And what it teaches us in that particular principle is that you have to learn rigorous honesty. Now, for many years and many treatments, I thought maybe that just meant to me that I couldn't lie to you. But what it means is honest with yourself. Because if I can lie to me, I can lie apply to any of you with no problem. And when we talk about the word command, the definition says to give someone an order. Now, don't fail to recognize that you know what it's like to be commanded. That goat told you what to do, when to do it. That casino told you what to do and when to do it. That alcohol told you what to do and when to do it. You bow down to that command. So we all know how to be commanded. But it's like we turn into these wimps in our recovery. I mean, you couldn't offend me for the life of me on the streets. They hit me upside the head with a baseball bat. I went to get some more dough. They told me no, I found somebody who would tell me yes. But the word command says give someone an order, to tell someone to do something in a forceful or official way. Well, that's what my addiction, it had command on me. To have authority or control over a group of people such as yours. Now, let's talk about the word command in your addiction. Now, you think it was just commanding you. It had not only control of you, it had control of your entire family because of you. So we got to realize that, I was a desperate and determined dope fiend, but I want to be a desperate and determined God fiend. I proved that I could be desperate and determined. I'll never forget when I met Mike Shea 10 years ago. Still friends with him today. Now, I'm not friends with anybody for 10 years. That's very new to me. But I walked into room 309 down at Team Challenge. I had teeth falling out of my head. I weighed about $130. He looked at me and he said, "This guy, that ain't going to work." "Why are you putting me with this guy?" he's saying. So then he began to tell me he was just an alcoholic. I said, "Well, tell me a little bit about your story." And he began to tell me a little bit about his story, and he told me about where the alcohol took him, where the depression took him, where he would open the door and literally look out and all he would see is everything was just gray. His outlook was gray, his life was gray, there was no plushness about it. But then he told me about his story. And I think a lot of people, especially the younger generation, thinks that weed or alcohol is no big thing. Alcohol is a slow killer. It's a slow killer. And it's a quick killer too. But Mike proceeded to tell me about a time that his father-in-law at the time was on his deathbed and they were feeding him morphine and he was nipping off the bag of morphine that was going into the IV, and then one of his pills fell through the cracks of the hospital room and it was like a foot down and he couldn't get to it. So he put a piece of gum on a pencil to grab the pill. I said, "Mike, you're just like me." I've had guys live in these houses for 10 years that think they're not as bad as their roommate. Then I call their wives up and get the real story. I talk to their children to find out what was really going on. Because when you're an addict like me, either you're going to fantasize of how good it really was, or you're going to lie about how bad it really was. We're not good at telling the truth. We're not good at telling the truth. And what it's saying now is that the command to deserve to be able to get or receive something, you deserve to get free. You've made it this long. You've survived some pretty intense life situations, addiction situations. You deserve to be commanded. It says to dominate as if from an elevated place. I was listening to a sermon today when I was on the treadmill, and I listened to it for the second time from Bishop Jakes. He was telling the congregation about you need to friend up. See, a lot of people get intimidated by people, so they friend down. I'm going to be friends with nobody that challenges me. I see it in the houses all the time. I'm going to hang around guys that got the same issues as me. Why would you want to do that? The cosign that won't challenge, that will not command. Now, I know AA and NA say these are suggestions. I don't work with suggestions. If I'm honest with myself, I never did what you suggested me to do. I never took recommendation. That's why I went through 11 treatments. So it says, to dominate as if from an elevated place. Have you given somebody permission to command you? And I really want to hit on that tonight too, because what it's saying, as I alluded to earlier in Romans 8:12-13, which command will you choose to listen to? I woke up this morning and the command on me was to be angry. My flesh was commanding me to be angry. My flesh then commanded me to be fearful. And then you begin to justify why you're fearful and angry. So either way, you're going to have to listen to a command. So why wouldn't you listen to the command that is sent to help you? You might think that you're a rebel and you're rebellious and you won't listen and you will not take an order. See, this brother here got sent here by Ryan Kordiak, a friend of ours, and he's been in the military. Now, I can tell you, if you were asked Ryan at his time in Iraq, he wouldn't want to be next to a soldier that didn't know how to take command. I was talking to Dewey last night, and he was telling me he invited some friends to church on Sunday, and I met him in the back row. And what the one gal had said is, boy, he's kind of military. That's right. I'm in God's army. And I was a soldier in the street too. Amen. See, I was trained by the devil, but he didn't know he was training me for the kingdom. So you got to know how God works. God is in the recycling business. He'll recycle your evil and turn it into good. He'll recycle your addiction to help other people get free. The very ripple effect that your addiction caused to destroy you and your family, you're the person that God has selected to restore your family. Now that don't make no sense. Why would anybody come to you for advice? You don't practice what you preach. You prove them right, just like I did. But that's what God will do for you. And you never know who or when He's going to do it. And it might be the people that you want to come to you, maybe your children, might be the last ones to come to you. But they're coming. Because the Bible teaches us on if you train a child. Now, it took me 35 years to train my children, and I wasn't the greatest example, but today they know when I'm going to show up. Today, so when we recognize it says, therefore, dear brothers and sisters, like you saw in that video, that you're dear to God. You're very dear to God, and He needs to be dear to you. How important is God in your life? Because you know He's important. You know how important He is. Even when you didn't believe in Him in your dark day, you prayed to Him. God, if you're out there, I don't even know, please help me. Well, here you are. You're here. Olga's got a phenomenal testimony that I've heard her say. She's not an addict. But there was a time that life took her to a place where she didn't have a roof over her head. See, sometimes we only go to God when times are tough. And we got to understand that His commands are sent to bed. It says, you have no obligation to do what your sinful nature urges you to do. See, you got to quit listening to the lie that the craving was just too powerful. I had no other choice but to use. And it goes on to say, for if you live by its dictates, that's commands. The flesh commands stuff of you. So either way, you're going to be commanded. By its dictates, you will die. Well, you know what? Maybe my mom, who's not an addict, who's here tonight, maybe if she listens to the dictates of her flesh, maybe she won't die, but her life will be short-lived. Have you ever seen somebody try to live life miserable? I'm grateful I had a mom that prayed me in here. I'm grateful that I had a mom that never gave up on me. But I'm grateful for my addiction. Because if I didn't have something in my life that is life or death, I don't know that I would seek God like I seek Him today. I love it when I hear Maddie coming back to SBA, just moved out, doing well in his work. He wants to be around the guys again. That's what I like to see. Now I can't wait to get out of here. But the flesh dictates, but it says, but if through the power of the Spirit you are put to death the deeds of your sinful sinful nature. So I ask you to be aware of what is commanding you. The command on you to be afraid, lie, cheat, steal is in you automatically. Watch how you do it while you're not drunk. Is it true or not? And it says that, but through the power of the Spirit, you will be put to death in the deeds of your sinful nature. So the question is, that I had, how do I get the power of the Spirit? Who can show me how to do that? I didn't know how. I graduated Bethel University. I grew up for the most part in church, but I didn't know how to do that. If I would have known how to do that, I wouldn't have had a crack pipe in my mouth. I don't want to hear people in jail or in treatment, well, I know God. If you would have known God, you wouldn't be in treatment. And I had to come to that conclusion within myself. But what it says, so I had to find a shepherd. I had to find a mentor. I had to find a sponsor that I needed to friend up. I needed to get around people that had what I wanted. I mean, you can't expect a person to take you somewhere in recovery in a place that they've never been. So look at your associations, even in your recovery world. It says, then I will give you a shepherd, a mentor, a sponsor, a pastor, after my own heart. That's a person that's not going to co-sign you. That's a person that's going to command you. But that's also a person, most importantly, that's going to love you. Now, love takes many different forms. In Corinthians, it says, love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, it does not boast. But in Hebrews, it says, God disciplines those he loves. So you need somebody to sort out this stuff for you, so it's not just information. It can become revelation, which leads to transformation. But I'm tired of I went to enough treatments to get information. Now I heard a friend of mine say last night, it's been on a bender, I love him like he's my brother. Well, this was me many years, I don't need another treatment. Yeah, you do. You need a timeout. You need to stop listening to the commands of the alcohol in you. So we know that God works through people. We know that God puts people in our lives that have been where we're at. So I ask you tonight, do you follow the commands of your mentor? Now don't tell me or yourself that you'll follow a suggestion, not a command. You won't. So either way you look at it, you're going to be commanded. And what it says now in Joshua, now this is talking about the people that God selects to command you. I mean, I need to be commanded. And check out what it says. A mentor has to relate to you, but from a higher level. You can't get anything other than fellowship from a person that's on the same level as you. If you want what they have, you have to do what they do. It says now, this is God talking to Joshua, who he's put in command to command the people. Be strong and courageous, or you shall cause this people to inherit their land. A person that is willing to command and mentor you is to teach you that you are going to get what God has for you. It's not to belittle you. It's not to make you feel bad about yourself. God sends people to cause these, because if you would have inherited your land, you would have done it already, if you knew how to do it. Who doesn't want to get their inheritance? If you knew how to do it, you would have done it. If you knew how to stay sober, you would have done it. Nobody likes to, I understand we have low self-worth. Somebody said to me years ago, you must not like yourself. I said, what do you mean? I said, I got the business, I got this, I got that. Well, why do you put yourself back in treatment if you feel so highly of yourself? Why do you put yourself in the crack house if you feel so good? Why do you put yourself back in the jail cell if you feel so good about yourself? I need somebody to teach me self-preservation. And it says, only be strong. And so what he's saying is, if you're called to help people, you better be strong. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I thought getting sober, you had to be strong and courageous. You need to be strong and courageous when you're called to help people that want to do it their way. When you have to sit back and watch somebody self-destruct. When you have to sit back and watch them talk and watch them do something totally different than what came out of their mouths. You have to be strong and courageous, and this is what God is teaching Joshua. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful to do according to the law that Moses... So I'm not teaching or leading or pastoring anything that I made up. I'm teaching what I've been taught. Nobody's reinventing the big book. Nobody's reinventing the GA book. It's there and it ain't going to change. So while you're being taught, somebody else taught the person that's teaching you. And that's what God's saying now to Joshua. You know, the book of law is not to depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate it on day and night. When's the last time you picked up a 24-hour day book? When's the last time you prayed? When's the last time you read a Jesus Calling? You need somebody to command you to do that. You ain't going to do that in your own self-discipline. Do evaluation on yourself. I don't do it either unless I got somebody commanding me to do it. It says, do not turn from the right hand or to the left. You may have good success wherever you go. So again, get somebody that is at a higher level than you, that has been where you're at, that can teach you how to go to where they are. And that's how the person that's teaching you stays where they're at. God didn't just get you out of the situation you were in to go, go to treatment, get sober, and go play house with the white picket fence. You tried that. That don't work. You've been called to serve. I heard a song as I pulled into the parking lot here this evening. It says, calling all the messengers. You're a messenger. Calling all the messengers. And what it's saying here is this. It says, I have not commanded you. Have I not commanded you, be strong, courageous? I can tell you in 10 years of trying to help people, God had to remind me and command me to be strong. I don't want to quit. My life's good now, God. I'd rather not spend time with people that don't want to get help. I'd rather not be lied to. I'd rather not be taken for granted. I'd rather not have to watch somebody that's been 6 months clean thinking they know what their next step is. And try to tell them, what are you doing? And then have them get mad at you. You better be strong and courageous when you're trying to help people, God's saying. Don't be frightened. Don't be dismayed. I've been those things in 10 years. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Joshua again then commanded, God told Joshua, now Joshua commanded his officers, pass through the midst of the camp, command the people. It doesn't say suggest, it doesn't say recommend. If you want to go to the promised land, this is how you're going to have to roll. Now, this is the largest transitional program in the Midwest. Within the next 24 months, we will have 100 beds. On top of a very fast-moving church. Now, if I could be at every place at once, I would love to do that. And like I said on Sunday, the CEO, wherever you work, might come walking into the mob like, yes sir, yes sir, yes ma'am, yes ma'am. But when a mid-level manager comes to address you, you roll your eyes. You will never be in a position to command when you can't be commanded. This is how it works in business. This is how it works in the kingdom. It's all interchangeable. That's why the 12 steps says, practice these principles in some of your affairs. It says all of your affairs. You shouldn't be a chameleon anymore. Different at work, throwing F-bombs around Jackson, but praise God, hallelujah, around Jack. That's not how it works. You need to be commanded how to live. And what it's saying here now I was so proud of the women last night. Now, if I'm not there at every meeting or every house meeting or whatever else, first and foremost, it is a lot for me to delegate. It's difficult for me because I have passion and love for you. So when I can't be in two places at once, I have to delegate. Well, I delegated to him this year. Last night the women got really real. Those who are capable of getting real. They said to my daughter, they said, is Pastor Jeff not going to come around anymore? Is Monica, and it's hard on me. Yeah, it is hard. But look at it a little differently. You should see a light of hope that a screwed up kid can now mentor. That's what you should be paying attention to. I told her last night the greatest compliment that I could ever give you as my daughter, and I didn't even remember there was a meeting. That's why I trust you. See, when I had to go to Leanne and say, you fill in, you take care, I don't have to worry about prayer. Can you go from a person to an officer? Can you go from a struggling addict to a sponsor? Are you always looking why this doesn't work for you? I got more people working it now than I've ever had in this camp. I know exactly where I stand with Scotty Lehman. I know exactly where I stand with Stace. I know exactly where I stand with Will, and I don't spend any time with them. Not any time. Stace called me up on Friday and said, I really want you to come down to this new sound studio to bless, and I want to make sure that we're under the heads of protection. I want to make sure that you think this is a good idea for us. That's humility. That's what I do with my mentor. And I'm not going to stop doing it because that's why I am where I am. If you're a renegade, like I said on Sunday, you think you're a Moses, look behind you. How many people are following you? Do you think you're a CEO or a future owner of a company? Look at your level of influence. And here's what happens there's many things that happen in the natural. But what happens in the spiritual, the unseen, the reaping and sowing, as the Bible teaches us, what happens in the spiritual is that you cannot be a person of influence to anybody in ministry and business unless you're being influenced. You cannot command unless you're being commanded. And let me tell you something. You can be like I was the first 5 years of Serenity Village. No covering, no authority, renegade. Yeah, I was somewhat effective. But I was empty, I was burnt out, and I was calling my own shots. Yeah, it looked good. But there's something happens with God if you do not know who your Joshua is. And you're called. Because even though you might be in a position of influence, it's still not as effective as it could be. And what happens, you're irritated, you're frustrated, and you're not able to be strong and courageous because nobody's teaching you how to be strong and courageous, because you're not going to go to a different level, because you're going to stay or decrease the level. See, what should happen here between the commander, the officers, and the people? I said this to Mike, and I forget who else was there last Tuesday. I said, you guys are doing great. I said, when you do great, it pushes me up. When I do great through God, when I go to a new level, you should be coming with me. You shouldn't be sitting at your level. We should rise together. But I'm seeing too much of a distance. And that's a choice. And what it says now in Matthew 22:36 through 40, a mentor has to teach you how to love God, yourself, and others. And this is how we operate in verse 36. Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses? We try to get by with the minimums. Now, I wasn't a minimum goat feeder. But when I got sober and tried countless times to stay sober. I just wanted to do the minimum. And that's what he's saying now to Jesus. He's saying, tell me the most important. Jesus replied, you must love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your strength, and your mind. So what that says to me, it says the second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law of these demands, not suggestions, of the prophets are based on these two commandments. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And that presents a huge challenge for a guy like me that doesn't love himself. Now, it's like trying to get sober and not working step 3. If you don't love God, why would you turn your will and your life over to the care of Him? And if you don't do that in step 3, you're going to remain with your fears. Your resentments are going to stay intact. You'll still act a fool with other sex conduct. Your character defects will remain the same. Your shortcomings will be living wildly in your heart. You'll live with unforgiveness. It's that raw. And you're still dealing, the alcohol's gone, but you still got the isms. The isms are what make you act and react, cope and not cope, perspective on. The isms are, when I was commanded to be angry this morning, staying angry. Right. This is deep stuff. It says in Mark 10:18 through 19, a mentor has victory in areas that you're captive. They have to be in front of you. They have to be at a higher level than you. You have to friend up, even though you're intimidated. Well, I used to be intimidated from those dope guys. Owed them money, and I still had the audacity to ask for more. Got kicked out of a bar one night, said I'd never go back. Switched up liquor stores. They know me. It's so embarrassing to go in there every day. I went in there anyway. I mean, we've been there, right? We can relate. And what it's saying here is saying, why do you call me good? Jesus asked, only God is good. I got the same issues you do. I mean, I go around and we all got issues, and the issue is you. So Jesus is saying, he redirected to God. Didn't put anybody on a pedestal. It says, but to answer your question, you know the commandments. You must not murder. You must not commit adultery. You must not steal. You must not testify falsely. You must not cheat anybody. And you need to honor your father and mother. What murder is, too, is don't assassinate anybody in your mind. Commit adultery. Who are you sleeping with that you're not actually sleeping with? Who are you sleeping with in this auditorium as a male to a female? And female, whatever you're doing. Every time you see them, you lock it, you save it, and you think about it later. Maybe you need to clear your memory drive. Reboot and start over. Do not commit adultery. Do not steal. You know what stealing is? Not speaking up in group. You're stealing from me. I pass. You just stole from me. Not showing up for a group. You just stole from me. Not working a program. You just stole from us. Don't listen to that command and you ain't got nothing to say. You're wise, and you're smart, and you're intelligent. Somebody needs to tell you that because you're listening to the opposite in your mind. Not cheat anybody. I mean, like I said on Sunday, I mean, it's like I cheated so many people that I could have helped by not getting free. Through going through 11 treatments, I cheated all the people that God would have had me. But you know what? God makes up for lost time. That's why you see the numbers that you see. He brings them anyway. You're talented, you've got wisdom, you've got experience. One thing we need to get is strength and hope. We all got experience, but what are we lacking? Now it says commands are in place to benefit you. Proverbs 6:23, accept a command to lead and discipline you, for their command is a lamp. People are running to help you. And their instruction is a light. Their corrective discipline. See, a lot of us mistake. If you're, let me tell you, you roll next to me, you roll next to people that mentor me, you better expect to be corrected. That correction is how I need to live. If I had all the answers, if I knew how to live, I wouldn't have been in the situation now. Well, now I don't need you. I'm successful. I got money. I need you now more than ever. I'm not going to steal from people anymore. But people mistake being corrected with being rejected. Be grateful that somebody actually cares about you enough to correct you. It says in 1 John 3:24, accept a command to be in constant fellowship. Talked to my bishop twice today. I want to be in constant fellowship with God, but I didn't know how to do that, so somebody had to show me how to do that. Those who obey God's commandments remain in fellowship with Him, and He with them. Get tight with people. Friend up. And we know, well, you're so busy. You don't even show up for the meetings anymore. How can we get close to what God's doing here, to the core of the people that are doing it? Start being where we're at. Show up on Friday night. We were all there. Show up on Wednesday night. We were all there. If you are looking for an excuse, you will always find one. It says, and we know God lives in us because the Spirit He gives us, and here's the thing, sometimes I can't hear the Spirit's voice, so I hear the voice of my mentor. How many of you were about ready to bust move, and probably not about, did it anyway, and you heard the voice of somebody speak to you? Your mom, your grandma, your dad, somebody that was important to you. It's so true that we understand how that works. It says in Psalm 119, 166, accept a command to no longer harm yourself. It says, I long for your rescue. I mean, everything is either God sent or God used. But if you don't have a mentor, then you're going to think you're going to be full of self-pity. But I know I got people in my life that will do anything for me. You really find out who's with you when times are tough. And that's what it says, I long for your rescue. If you're being commanded, you're going to get the right information, which leads to revelation and transferring. Revelation 3:10, accept a command not to quit and protect yourself. If you're listening to the command that's in you, you're going to quit every time. You need to be commanded by another person not to quit. But not just be commanded not to quit. Here's why you shouldn't quit. Because you're telling yourself to quit. And you're building your case why you should quit. I do it all the time. It happens between my wife and I. It happens here when I don't want to be very strong and courageous and I get sick of people. Yeah, I get sick of people. Just don't catch me on that day. You've been to work, you've been to a meeting, by the sound of somebody's voice is like, chop. I was at lunch with one of the top clients last week, and he points out to me, he says, well, I noticed he's a little preoccupied. I said, what's up, man? He goes, I can't stand that woman's voice over there. As soon as he said it, that's the one thing I can focus on. I was commanded to focus on something I couldn't stand. Versus being commanded to do something that you naturally wouldn't do within your own self. And this stuff is so right on. It says in Psalm 119:45, accept a command to be devoted and free. Now, I'm not going to naturally be devoted to anything but dough. I was devoted to dough. I don't know how to be devoted to my wife. I don't know how to be devoted to my child. I don't even know how to be devoted to you. I don't know how to be devoted to God. Somebody had to teach me. But I know I've been devoted to the wrong things. He's in the recycling business. So don't tell me you don't know what devoted is. You know what it is. You've been devoted. But what you were devoted to demoted you. Start to accept commands that will promote you. You can't promote yourself. You need a witness. When Jesus began his ministry, John had to point him out. John had to do it. Jesus. Don't work so hard to be the man. Maybe you're called to point to the man. I don't have no problems with my business partner. He's the guy. He's the guy, not me. But boy, I fought my whole life to be the guy. When you're fighting to be the guy, you ain't going to be the guy. But when you don't want to be the guy, God will promote you. Why did this church start? Not because I wanted to start it. Not because I promoted myself into it. My authority, my commander said, you're going to start a church. I couldn't see it. I couldn't feel it. Didn't know how it would work. But the commander said, do it. I did it, and I didn't want to do it. And if I wouldn't have done it, I wouldn't have experienced everything that it had to offer. God is no respecter of persons. He uses people to promote you. You self-promote, it's too much about you. Self-promote, you self-destruct. And what it's saying here, evaluate your actions, and this is what I want you to take the group with you tonight, and your perspective, Psalm 119, 127. Do you respect and cherish this opportunity? It says, truly I love your commands. I love it that somebody loves me enough to command me. I love that. You know, Nikki and I are closer than we've ever been. Last night I'm going to get choked up. She said, thank you, Dad. It took her 20 years to call me Dad. Because we both had love issues. That's what life's about. That's what life's about. I love the fact that God uses people to help me. I love that somebody's willing to work with a guy like me. If they really love you, you'll love this opportunity. 1 John 2:4, do you say one thing and do another? If someone claims they know God but doesn't obey God's commandments, that person is a liar and is not living the truth. We're called to a higher level. You think lying is lying? No, lying is saying you want to be sober and not work in the program. That's lying. Can you be commanded? The next thing is Joshua 1:16. Are you doing whatever is commanded of you? They answered Joshua. Now, God picked. We will do whatever you command us. We will go wherever you send us. Again, I'm going to eventually get a video recorder for when people move into the program. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, whenever it takes. My recovery's first. I will do whatever it takes. Then I want to hit play 2 weeks later. Is that you? Is that you in that video? See, you will always be tested on what you say. And here's the thing, guys. When you said it, you weren't lying. Right? You were in a healthy spot and you said it, but now you're being tested on what you said. And what it's saying here now in Deuteronomy 30:11, today is not too difficult for you. It is not beyond your reach. Now, I remember what it was like to be in active addiction and still try to go to work. Still try to be home on time for dinner. Now again, if you promote yourself, if you're devoted to one thing, you'll get demoted. But don't think that you cannot keep all the, oh, it's just too much. Too many commitments. I have no time for myself. Well, that's a good thing. We don't want you sitting by yourself. The worst possible company you can keep is with yourself. What are you thinking about when you're with yourself? You're thinking about murdering, stealing, committing adultery, testifying falsely against your neighbor. Why do you testify? Why do we testify falsely against our neighbor? Because we want to belittle them to make ourselves feel better. So the question I have for you as we go into groups. Deuteronomy 4:2, are you working the program or your program? If you don't have a commander, you're working your program. Do not add or subtract to these commands I'm giving you. Just obey them. Willingness is not doing what you're willing to do. That ain't willingness. Willingness is doing what you're commanded to do. Whenever and whatever it is. You got to know that what you're commanded to do is not meant to hurt you, even though it hurts. When it's nothing good is easy. It's designed to hurt. It's designed to be uncomfortable. I mean, this is so raw truth. And I pray that at least some of you can hear this. And it says loving God means keeping His commandments. Loving yourself means working a program. You ain't working a program, you don't love yourself. And quite frankly, you not only don't love yourself, you don't even love your family. You can say that you do, but you don't. Because you don't know how to love. Nor did I. I had somebody have to teach me. And is still teaching me. Because at the level that God has me now, I have to love at a whole different level. It's easy to love 6 people 10 years ago. And that wasn't even easy. Now you talk about 85 beds in the church that goes between 250 and 300. It's a privilege to love. You're easy to love. My prayer is that you learn to love yourself through loving God. So why would anybody want to help you or command you? John 13:34. They have learned how to love themselves through loving God and others. So Jesus says, so now I'm giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. How does Pastor Jeff love you? I don't ever see him. This is how I strive to love you. When I see you, I hug you and tell you I love you. Secondly, I prepare no less than 30 hours a week to teach you about love. Beyond that, residents, I've worked my life in 10 years to provide you with the best possible sober housing on the planet. How do the mid-level officers love you? They do what they do for free. Whenever or whatever it takes to help you. What does my wife do to love you? She gives up her time with her husband. What does my daughter do to love you? Why do I do this? Because somebody did it for me. Why does Bob Nelson manage your SB7 with Brian? Because they love you, even when you don't love them back. You know how hard it is for me to walk into your business and say, what are you doing not going to meetings? Can you believe you don't have a son? That stinks for me. But I love you enough to get into your business. 28:2, is it going to be your way or His way? Remember how the Lord your God led you through the wilderness, through your addiction, for 40 years. How long was it for you? Humbling you. What's it going to take for a guy like me to get it? How much more pain am I going to have to cause myself and people that I supposedly love? Testing you to prove your character. I had no character. And let me tell you something about when God tests you. He loves you, so He will always bring you back to the same test. That's why we always go back to treatment. That's why we always go back to church. That's why we always come back and say, give me one more try. That's love. I should not be here. There's been too much violence, gang violence, guns, overdoses, drunk driving. I should not be here. Ryan, you should not be here. But God wants you here. I am going into an era now with the residents of this program. If you're not ready for this, you are not going to be here. And that's a favor to you. It ain't going to look like it, it ain't going to sound like it, it ain't going to feel like it. But I love you that much. I had a guy chasing down one of our residents last week. Where is he? He needs a sponsor. I'm willing to sponsor off. That's love! Not, get out of here, I don't need a sponsor. That's hate. I ain't got time for hate. I ain't got time for it. The officers ain't got time for it. To find out whether or not you would obey His command. Time will tell. Everything you needed, you already got. God loved you enough to put you around some world changers, and you're one of them. This is your time to get it right. You don't have to return to your vomit. You don't have to, there is no I told you so's in this kingdom business. I'm just glad to see you back, and I wish you wouldn't have had to go do that to yourself. But I'm glad you're alive. I adore and love my wife, my daughter, my other two children. Adore and love you. There are countless people under the sound of my voice that do the very same thing. They will do anything for you to get the love of God in you. I could go name by name, but I am excited for you. You have to hear it this raw. You didn't want your drinks watered down. Gamblers, you didn't want to go to an unlucky machine. Dope fiends, you didn't want your dope cut. This is raw truth. We'll take a 10-minute break. I love you.